Yogg-Saron, one of the four old gods of Azeroth, is a malevolent and enigmatic entity whose influence has shaped the world's darkest chapters. Defeated by the Titans during Azeroth's primordial era, Yogg-Saron was chained within the Titan complex of Ulduar, buried deep beneath what would later become Northrend. Known as the Beast with 1,000 Maws, its insidious power thrives on manipulation, corruption, and sowing chaos. Yogg-Saron's schemes have left lasting scars on Azeroth. In its bid for freedom, it corrupted Loken, a Titan-forged keeper, turned him against his kin. This betrayal led to the death of the noble keeper Tyr, and sparked a cascade of events that destabilized the Titan's order. Yogg-Saron's most pervasive creation, the Curse of Flesh, transformed the resilient Titan-forged constructs of metal and stone into mortal beings of flesh and blood, making them vulnerable to death, disease, and the old god's whispers. This curse fundamentally altered the trajectory of Azeroth's races, including dwarves, gnomes, and humans who descended from these afflicted constructs. Millennia later, Yogg-Saron's reach extended to the World Tree Andrassil, planted by the Night Elves of Northrend. The old god's corruption twisted the tree, forcing the Night Elves to fell it, renaming it Vordrassil in shame. Unbeknownst to them, Yogg-Saron had already infiltrated the Emerald Dream, a spiritual realm tied to Azeroth's natural harmony, through the tree's roots. This breach planted the seeds of the Emerald Nightmare, a pervasive corruption that later threatened to consume the dream and its protectors, the Green Dragonflight. Yogg-Saron's influence also permeates Northrend's history. It drove the Nerubian Empire to madness, turning the spider-like race into fanatical worshippers or undead slaves. Its whispers reached mortal minds, inciting paranoia and betrayal, as seen in the madness of the Vrykul clans and the mortal explorers who ventured too close to Ulduar. Even the Titan-forged guardians of Ulduar, like the Watcher Freya, were not immune to its creeping influence, requiring heroes to intervene during the events of the rise of the Lich King. In Ulduar, Yogg-Saron's prison became its lair, a labyrinth of horrors where it tested adventurers with visions of Azeroth's darkest moments, such as the betrayal of King Lane by Garona and the fall of the Dragonflights. Its truest form, a writhing mass of mouths and tentacles, embodies incomprehensible terror, and its defeat required not only martial prowess, but resistance to its sanity-shattering whispers. Yogg-Saron's legacy is one of subtle, pervasive dread. Even after its defeat, its influence lingers in Azeroth's myths, the corrupted remnants of the Emerald Dream, and the mortal races still bearing the Curse of Flesh. Its whispers, epitomized by the phrase, "Hope is an illusion," continue to haunt those who delve too deeply into Azeroth's ancient secrets. Biography. Yogg-Saron, one of the four old gods of Azeroth, is a primordial force of chaos and malevolence whose influence has woven a tapestry of corruption across the world's history. Known as the Hope Devourer and the Beast with 1,000 Maws, Yogg-Saron once held dominion over Azeroth in an era before mortal memory. Its power so vast, it threatened the very fabric of existence. Its creation of the Curse of Flesh was a deliberate act to undermine the Titans' creations, transforming their resilient, metallic Titan forged into mortal beings of flesh and blood, susceptible to pain, fear, and Yogg-Saron's insidious whispers. This curse was not merely a weapon, but a tool for facilitating assimilation, bending the Titans' orderly creations to the old god's chaotic will. When the Titans, led by the Pantheon, waged war against the old gods, they shattered their citadels and subdued their tyrannical reigns. However, the old gods' roots had burrowed so deeply into Azeroth's core that eradicating them would have destroyed the planet itself. Instead, the Pantheon chose containment, imprisoning Yogg-Saron within the Titan complex of Ulduar, in the icy reaches of primordial Northrend. To ensure its eternal confinement, 6 Titan-forged Watchers were assigned as its wardens: Loken, Dorum, Hodir, Tyr, Mimiron, and Freya. These keepers were tasked with maintaining Ulduar's integrity and safeguarding Azeroth from Yogg-Saron's influence. Yet, Yogg-Saron's imprisonment was imperfect. Its black blood, seeping through Northrend's crust, crystallized into Saronite, a volatile, corrupting mineral that carried the old god's whispers to the surface. Saronite tainted all it touched, from the land itself to the minds of the mortals and Titan-forged alike. Its pervasive influence gnawed at the sanity of Ulduar's keepers, with Loken, the wisest and most ambitious of the six, becoming its primary target. Yogg-Saron exploited Loken's vulnerabilities, sowing paranoia and ambition that would unravel the Titan-forged order. Loken's downfall began with his illicit affair with Sif, the wife of his brother Thorim. Yogg-Saron's whispers twisted Loken's mind, amplifying his fear of losing Sif. In a moment of manipulated rage, Loken accidentally killed her. Terrified of Thorim's wrath and the Pantheon's judgment, Loken concealed his crime by framing Arngrim, king of the Frost Giants, for Sif's death. This deception ignited a war between Thorim's forces and the Frost Giants, which Loken ended by deploying an army forged in Ulduar's Forge of Wills. Unbeknownst to Loken, Yogg-Saron had tainted the forge with the Curse of Flesh, ensuring the newly created Iron Dwarves and Vrykul would gradually transform into mortal beings, vulnerable to corruption. The curse also began to spread retroactively, afflicting older Titan-forged and weakening their resolve. Desperate to cover his tracks and maintain his authority, Loken descended deeper into Yogg-Saron's thrall. He orchestrated Mimiron's apparent death in a staged laboratory accident, though Mimiron's mechanome followers preserved his soul in a new mechanical body. Loken subdued Hodir and Freya, corrupting their minds to align with Yogg-Saron's will, rendering them complacent within Ulduar. He also manipulated Helya, a Titan-forged sorceress, into imprisoning Odin, the Prime Designate, within the Halls of Valor, allowing Loken to claim Odin's title. Loken anticipated that Ra, another keeper, would investigate from the south, but Ra never came. Devastated by the discovery of the Pantheon's death at the hands of Sargeras, he sealed himself within the Mogushan vaults. With his rivals neutralized, Loken exiled the remaining Titan forged from Ulduar and retreated into the depths, ruling as a puppet of Yogg-Saron's will. For millennia, Yogg-Saron's influence over the Keepers remained subtle, keeping them quiet and compliant, but unable to fully bend them to its service. The old god's prison held, but its whispers continued to corrupt Northrend's inhabitants, from the Nerubian Empire to the Vrykul clans, driven them to madness or servitude. It was not until the arrival of Cho'Gall, a fanatical leader of the Twilight's Hammer cult, that Yogg-Saron's chains were weakened. Cho'Gall's rituals within Ulduar amplified the old god's power, tightening its grip on the Keepers and transforming their tedious obedience into ironclad loyalty. Under Yogg-Saron's command, Loken reactivated the Forge of Wills, producing legions of Iron Dwarves and Vrykul programmed for war and bloodshed, their bodies already succumbing to the Curse of Flesh. Yogg-Saron's influence also extended beyond Ulduar's walls. Its corruption of the World Tree and Drassel created the gateway into the Emerald Dream, planting the seeds of the Emerald Nightmare, a malevolent force that would later threaten Azeroth's natural balance. The Saronite mines of Northrend became breeding grounds for madness, ensnaring miners and adventurers alike. Even the Lich King, a being of immense power, was wary of Yogg-Saron's influence, as Saronite's whispers could undermine his control of the Scourge. During the rise of the Lich King, Yogg-Saron's scheming culminated in a desperate bid for freedom. Adventurers stormed Ulduar, confronting the corrupted Keepers and facing Yogg-Saron itself in a nightmarish battle. The old god assaulted their minds with visions of Azeroth's darkest moments, such as the assassination of King Lane and the fall of the Dragonflights, while its true form, a grotesque mass of mouths and tentacles, sought to crush them. Defeating Yogg-Saron required not only physical strength, but resistance to its sanity-shattering whispers, epitomized by its chilling mantra, "Hope is an illusion." Though Yogg-Saron was subdued, its legacy endures. The Curse of Flesh continues to define Azeroth's mortal races. Saronite remains a dangerous relic of its power, and the Emerald Nightmare's roots persist in the dream. Yogg-Saron's whispers, though silenced in Ulduar, linger in Azeroth's shadows, a reminder that the old god's influence is never truly eradicated. Its story is a cautionary tale of corruption, betrayal, and the fragility of even the mightiest beings when faced with the unrelenting chaos of an old god. Wrath of the Lich King. In the shadowed archives of Azeroth's ancient history, during the grim war against the Lich King, a revelation of treachery sundered the heart of Thorim, Stormlord and Titan-forged Keeper. For millennia, Thorim had languished in the Temple of Storms, cloaked in grief, believing the Frost Giant King Argrim had slain his beloved Sith. Yet, as the icy winds of Northrend carried whispers of the truth, Thorim learned the bitter reality. Sith's blood stained the hands of his brother Loken, who had fallen prey to the insidious plotting of Yogg-Saron, the old god, imprisoned beneath Ulduar. Enraged, Thorim summoned his might, rallying the sons of Hodir, frost giants sworn to the Keeper Hodir, and brave adventurers of the mortal races. Together, they descended upon Ulduar to get justice. But this was no righteous crusade. It was a snare woven by Loken's corrupted cunning. The traitor lured Thorim from the sanctity of his temple, where Yogg-Saron's influence waned, to the heart of Ulduar, where the old god's dread presence pulsed like a festering wound. There, Thorim's fury faltered, and he and his loyal proto-drake Varanus were seized. Dragged into Ulduar's abyssal depths, Thorin was subjected to Yogg-Saron's unrelenting whispers, a torment crafted to shatter his mind and bind his will to the beast with 1,000 maws. Far beyond Ulduar's iron halls, Yogg-Saron's corruption had long since seeped into Azeroth's lifeblood, most notably through the world tree Vordrassil, once called Andrassil. Planted by the ancient druids to nurture harmony in Northrend's wilds, Vordrassil's roots burrowed too close to Yogg-Saron's subterranean prison. Through this breach, the old god, in unholy concert with its kin, wove a malign thread into the Emerald Dream, birthing the Emerald Nightmare, a realm of twisted flora and unending terror. The druids, sensing the tree's defilement and the colossal power of Yogg-Saron's will, razed Vordrassil to its roots, hoping to sever the corruption spread. Yet the old god's taint endured, cooling in the tree's shattered stump within the grisly hills. Ages later, the Grizzlemar Furbolgs, seeking refuge in Vordrassil's remains, succumbed to the lingering evil. Madness took them, turning kin against kin in a frenzy of bloodlust. Driven by a fanatical compulsion, the Furbolgs sought to resurrect the cursed tree, channeling the dark energy still radiating from its roots. In their rituals, they invoked the dire power to raise Ursoc, the bear god and revered wild god, from death. But the Ursoc that returned was no guardian of the wilds. He was a monstrous perversion, his noble spirit warped into a savage reflection of Yogg-Saron's chaos, a living testament to the old god's enduring reach. When the heroes of the Alliance and the Horde, guided by the indomitable Bran Bronzebeard, reached Ulduar's sanctum to confront Yogg-Saron, they faced not merely a foe of flesh and shadow, but a force that unraveled the mind. Within the old god's lair, a maelstrom of mouths and tentacles, Yogg-Saron assailed them with visions, 3 haunting scenes drawn from Azeroth's blood-soaked history, each suggesting the old god's unseen hand in the world's darkest hours. The first vision unveiled the forging of the Dragon Soul during the War of the Ancients. Neltharion, the Earth Warder, stood with his fellow dragon aspects, crafting a weapon to repel the Burning Legion. Yet beneath his noble facade, Neltharion's heart had been poisoned by the old god's whispers, and the Dragon Soul became a tool of betrayal, sundering the aspects' unity and triggering the great sundering that tore Azeroth apart. Yogg-Saron's presence in the vision hinted at its role in Neltharion's fall, a subtle corruption that reshaped the world's fate. The second vision revealed the assassination of King Lane Wrynn, struck down by Garona half-orc since Blade in the waning days of the First War. Compelled by dark forces, Garona's act delivered Stormwind to the Orcish horde, plunging the human kingdoms into chaos. Yogg-Saron's shadow loomed over this tragedy, suggesting its whispers may have amplified the sorcery that bound Garona, weaving discord among mortals as it had among titans. The third vision peered into the frozen heart of Icecrown, where the Lich King, Arthas Menethil, tormented Bolvar Dragon, the hero destined to inherit the helm of domination. Yogg-Saron's voice thundered through the vision, proclaiming, "He will learn, no king rules forever, only death is eternal." These words, a chilling prophecy, foretold Arthas' demise at the hands of the Ashen Verdict and Bolvar's ascension as the new Lich King. Eerily, The phrase echoed in the final words of Tyrannus Menethel's spirit to his fallen son, hinting at Yogg-Saron's presence or influence over the Scourge's dominion, perhaps through the Saronite forged into the Lich King's armor and citadel. These visions were no mere illusions, they were weapons, crafted to erode the hero's sanity and sow doubt in their purpose. Yogg-Saron, the god of death, reveled in their fear, its voice a disharmony of despair. Bow down before the lucid dream, the fiend of 1,000 faces. Yet the adventurers stood resolute, battling through the old god's minions and resisting the madness that threatened to consume them. In the hardest trials, where no keeper's aid could be summoned, they faced Yogg-Saron at the height of its unbound power, a nightmare given form. With blade, spell, and unyielding will, they struck down the old god, silencing its whispers, for a time. Yet, the defeat of Yogg-Saron was no final victory. The old gods are eternal, their essence entwined within Azeroth's core. The curse of flesh endures in the mortal races, Saronite veins pulse with latent corruption, and the Emerald Nightmare's roots linger in the dream. The Grizzlemar Furbolg's insanity, Ursoc's defiled resurrection, and Vordrassil's cursed stump stand as grim reminders of Yogg-Saron's reach. The visions of Ulduar, with their cryptic ties to the Sunderin, Stormwind's fall, and the Lich King's reign, whisper of a truth yet unveiled. Yogg-Saron's influence may stretch further than any mortal can fathom, its schemes woven into the tapestry of Azeroth's past, present, and perhaps its doomed future. In the silence of Ulduar's halls, the old god's final taunt lingers. Hope is an illusion. Legion. In the twilight of Azeroth's struggles, during the third invasion of the Burning Legion, a dire quest drew Bran Bronzebeard, the intrepid dwarven explorer, and Khadgar, the archmage of unparalleled wisdom, the ancient titan complex of Ulduar in Northrend's frozen wastes. Their purpose was to rendezvous with Magni Bronzebeard, Bran's brother, who had been transformed into a crystalline herald of Azeroth's world soul and bore urgent tidings of the planet's peril. Yet, as they crossed Ulduar's threshold, an oppressive depression descended upon them, for the sanctity of the Titan-forged halls had been defiled once more by the lingering malice of Yogg-Saron, the old god whose dread influence had never truly been purged. As Bran and Khadgar ventured into Ulduar's antechamber, a choking mist of Saronite vapors enveloped them, seeping from the very walls and floor. Saronite, the crystallized blood of Yogg-Saron, pulsed with a malevolent energy, its sickly green hue casting an unearthly glow that seemed to writhe with a life of its own. Air grew thick, not merely with the metallic tang of the mineral, but with an insidious weight that clawed at the mind, whispering of despair and betrayal. From the shadows emerged the Faceless Ones, grotesque, amorphous horrors birthed from the old god's essence. Their eyeless visages and writhing tentacles struck with unrelenting ferocity, their forms a mockery of light, driven by the same chaotic will that had once corrupted Ulduar's keepers. The Faceless Ones were no mere remnants, but a sign of Yogg-Saron's power, though diminished, stirred anew within its ancient prison. Amid the clash of steel and spell, an unknown voice, cold and immersed with an otherworldly dread, slithered into the minds of Bran and Khadgar. Its words were not spoken, but felt, a violation of thought that echoed the old god's signature torment. Given the Saronite's presence and Ulduar's history as Yogg-Saron's lair, the voice could scarcely be attributed to anything other than the entity. It whispered of futility, of the inevitability of chaos, and of secrets buried deep within Azeroth's core, secrets that even the Titans had feared to unearth. The voice sought to unravel their resolve, conjuring visions of failure and betrayal, much as Yogg-Saron had once tormented the heroes who had faced him in the past. To Bran, it may have recalled the horrors of Ulduar's raid, where Yogg-Saron's visions of Azeroth's darkest moments, the forging of the Dragon Soul, the fall of King Lane, and the Lich King's reign, had tested the sanity of all who stood against it. To Khadgar, a veteran of cosmic wars, the voice was a chilling reminder of the old god's reach, their influence entwined with the Legion's invasion and the deeper threats facing Azeroth. The Saronite vapors were no natural phenomenon, but a deliberate manifestation of Yogg-Saron's lingering power. The mineral, known to drive mortals to madness and even challenge the Lich King's dominion over his scourge, was a conduit for the old god's will. Its vapors amplified the Faceless One's strength and clouded the minds of intruders, making every step a battle against both flesh and psyche. The antechamber, once a testament to Titan craftsmanship, had become a festering wound in Uldurar's heart, where Yogg-Saron's essence seeped through the cracks of its imperfect prison. The Faceless Ones, relentless and numberless, pressed their assault, their forms dissolving and reforming as if drawn from the Saronite itself. Each blow a reminder of the old god's unyielding hatred for order and life.